Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira, and today's guest is none other than the legendary Paolo Greco from Lost Pages, the creator of Adventure Fantasy Gaming, Cthulhu Codex, Mageblade, Wolfald, and now Beyond the Pale. So many cool things, and Lost Pages also published many great projects such as the Book of Galb, Wonders Wickedness, and many others. But before we get to that, I would like to remind you to subscribe to our show so you keep updated with new episodes, new interviews, and if you like the show, please write a review of it, share with your friends, share on social media, and if you have any coins left, check out our show notes with links where you can support the show, buy some of my games, or go to co-fi.com/WG and WP and pay us a coffee and help us pay the bills of the podcast, subscriptions, and apps. But now let's get back to Paolo Greco. Paolo runs Lost Pages, a indie RPG publishers focused on spellbooks and other fantasy. Their work includes some of the games I mentioned before, and they work also with publishing games from other authors. For example, the first edition of Into the Odd was published by the Lost Page. Wonders Wickedness, which is also a great spell book, was also published by them. And in this chat, we talked about the times we spent on Google+, we talked about mental health, and discovering this and how we're dealing with this in our process, in our creative process, the amazing things they did and they are doing. Wolfald is coming out, Beyond the Pale, and we talked about works that influenced them, artists that inspired them to do their work and seek out new things. We talked about magic and rituals and how this relates to tabletop role-playing games. We talked about how games and magic have this relationship in making manifesting the will in a way. And we talked about Cthulhu Codex, the curiosity Paolo has in exploring all different kinds of hobbies and media, and it was really a great chat. We had a lot of fun, we got weird, so I hope you enjoy it with us. So let's get weird with Paolo Greco. Hello, Paulo. How are you, my friend? It's so good to see you. We've been, talking a little bit since G Plus days, right? And it's
since
awesome
G+.
to put a face on an icon and like those iconic eye from Lost Pages. So it's great to see you. I admire your work for so long, and it's really a pleasure to have you here. How have you been, Paulo?
Hey, thank you very much for the kind word. Yeah, it's been a while. It's weird how you can spend decades even talking with people online, and then like you finally put a face on them. But yeah, no, I'm really good. 2023 and 2024 have been kind to me.
Oh, I'm glad. How good have you been? How is the end of the year? In 2024, I haven't seen you
COVID.
for a while. Like, yeah.
The end of 2023 was COVID, but apart from that, I had a really great year.
Yeah.
Work has been good. Book production has been picking up again, and my mood and mental health have been greatly improved.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it's great.
Do you want to talk about it? What you have been experiencing with mental health? We talk a bit about this in the podcast. I always weirdos out there are probably tired to hear about my anxiety and now I'm finding about autism now. But how has been this journey for you? Because it's something we didn't learn as younger. Like now, young people are learning about mental health because we talk about this all the time. But I mean, I never heard about this when I was growing up, so it's
no, absolutely
new stuff for me.
So I was born in '79, which is a while ago. And
I have so much more gray hair than you, and I'm from '84. So
I just sleep in the fridge. That's my secret. That and I eat a lot of salad. I don't know. Maybe genetics.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah. I have gray hair from I was 15 years old. My first girlfriend was like picking gray hairs from my head. So yeah.
Oh wow. I actually remember having way more white hair in my beard than I have now when I was a teenager. But I don't know,
Wow.
maybe it was cigarettes
Yeah.
or whatever other stupid stuff I was doing when I was a teenager. But yeah, mental health. It's like until very recently, I feel like it's been, and especially in Italy, I feel like you were either psych ward material or okay, and there was pretty
Wow.
much no halfway.
Yeah.
Uh, there was like no gradient, and because of my family history, because of my grandmother spent because of like excessive trauma, spent a lot of her time in with like needing psychiatric support. So I had like first-hand knowledge of mental illness. Uh, and my grandfather uh, fought in Russia against Russia and survived the worst onslaught by the Italian army in history and got PTSD. So my mom grew up with two parents
Wow.
with PTSD. And yeah, that's typical generational trauma, right? But one
Yeah.
takes decades to find out, and so it takes decades to unwind maladjustment sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because you grow up
Yeah.
in an
And we're
environment
still
not.
doing that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're still doing it, and I don't think it will ever be done. And we take like to survive in this difficult environment, just to have a life, you do stupid things that then end up you learn stupid, like you learn bad, like the wrong things as a kid, and then you
Yeah.
keep on doing that for
We
your whole
learn
life.
from their mistakes. Yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it has taken a lot of like unwinding and unlearning, and a lot of like listening to my emotion, even like without acting on them, because that's a typical ADHD. So I've been very public about my ADHD diagnosis. I was in Google Plus. Google Plus was still on when it happened, and it was
Oh.
very public about it. I'm very outspoken, and I wrote quite a lot about it. And what happens is that one of the symptoms is the impulsivity, which is like acting, right? Reacting on your emotion, not acting. But
Yeah.
there is a solution, and you need, like, you have the impulse to act on it immediately rather than sitting on it and deciding what to do about it. And usually the reaction is a very emotive, belly driven,
Yeah.
put myself out of discomfort reaction that might be aggression, might be running away, might
Flight.
be
Yeah. Fight or
uh,
flight.
fight or flight or phone, or shutdown. I can't remember what's the F for shutdown, but um, there is like a number of those, and it takes a whole lot of effort and introspection and self-criticism, and just like be aware that there is a problem, because like for
Yeah.
decades I was not aware that there was an emotional problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awareness
uh,
is the first step, because when you start perceiving yourself in those situations, in those emotions, and seeing that you're not, doing your best, acting your best, you're, as you said, reacting to something, and sometimes it's a problem, and instead of calmly dealing with the problem, you react, and the problem just gets bigger, like it's a snowball effect. And
yeah, yeah.
as you said, how have you uh start becoming aware? How have you started like dealing with this? Do you do any kind of exercise or practice or anything that helps you alleviate the symptoms or deal with it a little bit better? Like I have anxiety and I take CBD for it. And I,
Hmm.
I do exercise, I try to meditate, I, you know when I wake up, I'm teaching this to my kid. As we wake up, at least 30 minutes without touching any device.
Hmm.
Go to the bathroom, drink some water, read, or go play with Legos, something to let your mind, not start away directly with a big dose of dopamine or any of those things that social media or like displays does with the. Do you have
Hmm.
anything that helps you deal with this? With
Uh, so yeah, like yes, a bunch of practices. I mean, I don't have them as they're kind of a piecemeal. I wouldn't say they're a system, but there are a lot of things that I do in order to steady myself in a way. Um, so there is like I don't know, start from like basic like mindfulness,
Do you go
just
for
like sit
walks
down,
or something?
like
Yeah, yeah.
even like just for a walk and like don't think, like don't think. I'm
It's
one of those
very
like
hard.
lucky
Yeah.
people that since I was a little kid, I was able to blank my mind. Just
Oh,
like I started by thinking about an empty sheet of paper, and then that became just being able to bear my mind within like a very short amount of time. And it's not easy, like it requires concentration, but even like there is an easier way to get into a more like the easiest I feel like the easiest way to get into a blank mind is to just like literally feel like you feel you start to feel your feelings and you feel your feelings and then you feel like you start to feel your body and you feel oh
yeah,
like my right shoulder is a bit tense and then you realize that like you've been actually like keeping your shoulder muscle tense for the past 7 hours
yeah.
and
You're
then you
flexing
realize
it for
oh
some reason. Yeah,
yeah my right foot itches and I can hear birds outside and the train passing and it really itches behind my right ear and probably like I need to adjust the lumbar support on my chair. And once you are in the habit of listening to your senses,
yeah,
um, it's easier because like it's a muscle. Like we are
yeah. Practice.
currently,
Yeah, yeah,
as we practice things, we rewire our brain to do those things better. So it becomes easier, and so it's easier to detune yourself from obsessive thoughts or from intrusive
yeah.
thoughts or for any kind of thoughts that like I don't want to
It
say
is.
thoughts you
It
don't want to
is.
have. I don't want to say it's an avoiding
Yeah, it's
mechanism.
not. It's not avoiding.
Uh,
It's maybe regaining a little bit more of control. Because sometimes
yes,
we just
totally.
spiral out of control, just thinking about, oh, I have to do this, and then I have this problem. But what if they say this? What if this happens? What if And you stay in the what if, and it's something I always say is here. Like we start living in our thoughts outside of our body. You're not feeling, our body. We don't know where we are. We're not even present with the people. Sometimes people are talking to us, and we're like, yeah, and but we're somewhere else. And this
Yeah,
practice of feeling the body, one thing that always helps me is try to feel the clothes on your skin, because that's really concentrates you to try to feel something very specific, and then you can start feeling the rest of your body, your legs, or even the
yeah,
sweat dripping from your forehead, and you leave the thoughts in the thought cloud over there, and you can
yeah,
feel your
yeah.
body, you feel more present, and it makes a lot easier, I think. And that's something
Yeah.
I try to teach my kid. Like we go for a walk, like, oh, let's go buy some bread. And he's autistic like me, and currently his hyper focus is Minecraft. So he wakes up
Ah,
talking
great.
about Minecraft, and he goes to sleep talking about Minecraft. So we are on the street, trying to disconnect a little bit, and he's talking about Minecraft, 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 and oh yeah, fun, okay, but let's try to do something. Let's just walk, and even if you're like with shoes, try to feel the surface beneath your shoes. Oh, step on this stone, can you feel the stone? Step on this, can you feel how the different it is? Can you hear the birds? Can you hear the cars moving? Can you feel the winds like in like blowing in your skin. Those things like it's it's not really those formal meditation that you sit down and things like
Yeah,
this, but it is a
to a
kind of
mantra
meditation,
or
and
whatever.
it really
Yeah, it
helps.
is.
And he's anxious just like me. We can see it, but I don't know. I learned this very very old, so maybe try to teach this stuff to disconnect and because he knows he gets lost in the whirlwind of thoughts. So that's something to try. Well, try getting out of the whirlwind, just feeling your body, feeling the things around you, and that can really help. I think it's as you were saying. But Paulo,
Yeah.
we're talking about all this
No, but like
mental
there is
health
also
things. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was saying there is also like I just realized another side of these having intrusive, like having like persistent obsessive thoughts, that most of my best work has been done because I got obsessive
That's
about them.
true. That's
Uh,
true. That's true. That's
uh,
that's
like,
another side of everything can be good or bad. I say to him that's our autism can be difficult sometimes, but it's also a superpower.
oh yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I'm on the autistic spectrum myself. Like, not I don't have a formal diagnosis yet, but the people that like healthcare professional told me that like I'm clearly on the spectrum. Like, so like I totally agree, and these all uh, neurodivergence just give us different tools. The fact that like
Yeah.
we really like sometimes we
Yeah.
don't feel in the toolbox that society expects is
Yeah.
a problem,
Yeah.
but it
Because society was made for this kind of people that think more like most of people. It's not like we have a problem necessarily. It is a problem because everything else is tailor made for something different, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But Paulo, talking about mental health is very important. Like we're also illuminating some of the readers that listen to us, but maybe someone doesn't know who the legendary Paolo Greco is, and I always like to ask uh, the guests that come here to say a little bit who they are, what they do, and if they can share a small detail about themselves through their own words instead of me just reading a bio or something.
Uh, Hey, I'm Paul. I grew up in Italy. I moved to Scotland when I was 24. I've been here for almost 20 years, 20 years in a few months. And I have too many hobbies. And one of them is writing games. I'm playing games, roguelikes, and printmaking, and uh, I started making furniture again, and I started to run
Wow,
this. Yeah, so like this is like just a random pool of one of my friends.
nice.
Uh,
What do you
uh,
make those on? It's wood, it's stone, or what do you use?
this is linoleum. This is a lino cut, but
Oh
I
yeah,
also do wood cut, and I did some etchings in the past. I also like in the
beautiful.
past couple of years I started to do slam poetry. It's I have
How how
too many things.
how do
I
you
have too many things to
approach?
do and not enough time.
Yeah, yeah. How do you
Uh,
approach? You're clearly an artist. Like you like to explore different media. You're like very curious. I would guess. And how would you say RPG making with lost page is like your main hobby job, and the
yes,
other things are things you explore, or like you
yes.
there's an artist that I really really admire, which is Bo Burnham, who is a comedian, but he's also a filmmaker. Now he's exploring music, and he's talking about exploring something completely different too. And I think it's very rich because everything you explore can teach you, and like the from one thing on a thousand things. So every time you explore these other possibilities, you learn things you can apply to the things you're like as you said, we have an hyperfocus or are more obsessed with. So would you say
Uh,
you how do you
yes.
choose the things you're exploring?
Well, how do I choose them? Like, I guess like Lost Pages started as after I did my postgrad. I did a research master. Something that you do in a research master is you write a lot, and so I learned to write. And by that I mean I learned to sit down and type. Like
Hmm.
you need to produce so many words that you just learn to pump out words. And I also learned to like most of these like word writing is terrible, but also it got me capable to write. And maybe I don't write well, but I was able to write. And writing, I'm a computer scientist, like I'm a software engineer as a profession. And they found that writing role-playing game books uh, is not that different from writing technical documentation. And I love
Yeah.
writing technical documentation. Um, and so when I started, like after my postgrad, I was unemployed for a while. I was just like, it was a few months, but I basically finished my first game, which was adventure fantasy game FG. This was like 2011. Um, And then I started working and I did a printmaking course and a bookbinding course. And because I've always been obsessed with books. And those things started to inform my game making. So, for example, um, one of the literally the first numbered Lost Pages book, issue one, was a spell book written by Roger DGS of Rolls, Rules, and Door Rolls. He's a blogger. He's been blogging for, I don't know how many years, at least like 15 years, I guess, of
Yeah.
OSR stuff. Um, and I made a concertina book that was like 3 meters and a half long, and I unbound the entire
Wow.
first edition by hand. So it would be a concertina, like it would be between hardcovers, and it would be a
Hmm.
concertina. So you could just like fold it out. And the initial idea was to make a wall scroll. I don't know if you're like a wall scroll is just like essentially a scroll that you hang on your wall and it just comes down. But nobody has a wall that is 4 meters
Yeah.
tall.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
and
gonna
so
be
I made
hard.
a book that falls sideways, which is still 3 meters and a half. So unless you have an empty shelf that is 3 meters and a half long, there is no hope to show all of it. But the original
Yeah.
idea was to make a book that potentially you could see every single page at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and that I could make it because like I did a
Yeah.
bookbinding course and then I did a printmaking course. These two things together mixed with the sad experience at Glasgow University made me write Tony Codex, which is ostensibly a game about students going to magic universities and mythical underworld, but actually a not so subtle satire of the university system in the UK.
Mm.
And so, yeah, you're playing in a point crawl, mythical underworld, mythologically inspired game where you play a student of magic and your teachers don't really care about you and send you on terrifying errands.
Assignments. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's actually like me throwing a strop about postgrad studies in the UK. Um,
Yeah.
and
Did you?
so, like, all these things like fuel into each other. Um, and I've been blessed by having parents that were very bookish. Like, my parents always
Oh
had a
yeah.
bunch of books in the house, and also really liked. I don't know how to say, but more like high art, as in like
Yeah,
going to famous
different
galleries.
kinds of art. Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like things like
different
I grew
kinds
up
of
in Italy,
art.
so this is gonna sound like maybe like
Yeah,
incredibly like wonky for American or like for other like from other countries, but like we went to like the Pinacoteca Ambrosiana or to the Uffizi in
yeah. I
Florence or to
mean,
Vatican
you
City.
can breathe art in Italy, and you can breathe art because
Yeah.
it's everywhere. It's as I said, like before I started recording, weirdos out there don't know, but I was talking about my dream was to go study in Italy to be a professor. Go to Firenze or Rome or universities, and you can breathe art, like everywhere. There's so much to learn and to see, but yeah. It's good. It's
And
probably gonna be hard to like live in Italy and be talking about. Yeah, I don't care about art. It's
I don't know,
I
like
can imagine, but there
I feel a
probably
bunch
is.
of
But
people
it's
don't,
yeah.
but
Wow.
it's also, I feel like after coming here, I realized that the attitude toward making art in Italy is very much different because of our history. We still put a lot of weight in the craftsmanship aspect, as in like
Mm,
uh, the craft of painting well, like
yeah.
figurative painting, for example, like figurative sculpture, like doing really good anatomy and good shading and all of those things. Well, I found out, and I can't do that. Like I
Just
tried, even in an art class, I just couldn't. I
yeah.
can't do it. But after I came here, I realized that, like, for example, like at this Glasgow School of Art, they are not much based on that. But there is, like, for example, like more. Uh, I feel like there is more. There are other aspects to it, and eventually I picked up the uh, for art. I picked up the two, like for art that creates like artifacts. I picked up the two forms that are possibly the most technical. No, not the most technical, but they are highly technical in their printmaking and bookbinding. So it means that, uh, in a way, the process and the tools and the way you set up the work um, can get around the fact that, like, for example, like the way I do printmaking is the way I like my approach to printmaking is to compensate the fact that I cannot draw to save my life. Like I'm garbage at drawing.
Well, the the moth for butterfly you showed is pretty amazing. I mean, drawing is not
Yeah,
necessarily really realistic drawing. You can make really incredible drawings and not being really like formally accurate, I would say, right?
um, yeah, but the way I do it is, for example, like I do a lot of geometrical and animal work, sometimes together.
Hmm.
But mostly, like, for example, for my animal work, um, revolves around finding a good picture, printing it, uh, and then drawing over it
Hmm.
with Sharpies, and then transferring that onto the block, and then reworking
Oh yeah.
the line work and doing layer design and like blocks of color,
Oh
organizing.
yeah.
I wouldn't say shading, but uh, there is a whole, like, I developed a whole process to cope with the fact
Mm-hmm.
that I'm unable to draw. And I tried, like those like book, like draw everyday
Yeah.
books, and in a month you'll be able
Yeah.
to draw. And I've done them, not okay, not for a month, but like my hand is terrible. I just have a terrible hand. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. It's. we do what we can, and we learn,
We do what we
and
can.
even though you say you don't draw, maybe I just see it's a drawing, but a different kind of drawing. It's a different kind of work. Drawing is in there. It's not like the main thing, I would say, but it's
Yeah.
it's a part of the thing. I don't know. uh Paulo, what would you say is weird for you? Like the podcast is called Weird Games and Weirder People, and the theme is kind of weird, then you wonderful. Uh, but your games and your work always explores the unexpected quite a bit, and you do things way very unique. So I would ask you, how do you define weird for you, and how do you seek it not only in your work, but in the experiences you have in life in general?
Um, I think that for me, it, weird is such a strange word because, like in English, it carries like it's a bit of like a negative word. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's that.
there,
We're
there,
trying to
there,
change that. That's the weirds the new
yes,
wonderful kind of
absolutely,
deal.
but there is both an aspect of not fitting in and also unexpected, and they're totally not negative things at all. They're negative only
Yeah,
insofar as you expect like conformity, because they both fly in face of conformity.
exactly.
Um, and, and and going into weird art, like weird fiction or weird art subjects, like weird paintings or that kind of weird, I find that what works for me is to have essentially magical realism when there is like absolutely bog standard reality with something that makes it completely alien to our experience in it. So, for example, like um, I really talking like my typical examples are from the work of my favorite writer, which is Italo Calvino, um, and he wrote this book called The Cloven Viscount. And basically, there is this count that goes to the Crusades, comes back to Italy, but only half of it, because he got cloven
Wow.
by in a fight, and he came back an evil man, like he just like craven and cruel and despotic and angry. And spoiler, at some point, the other half come back, and that's the good half. And there is
That's a
another one.
fantastic adventure for role playing games. Someone
Yes,
has to write
absolutely.
this.
And there is another one, which is the non-existent knight, which is a tale about the knights of Charlemagne. And the best knight is this knight that is an empty suit of armor, and
What?
is only held together by his duty, his valor, his honor. And he has even have as a scarf tied to his arm, and it's a scarf given to him by his dame, for a love that they never consumed because it's not there.
Wow.
Um,
I remember
and
a
so,
friend of mine. Sorry, Adam Muskevich from Metal Gods of Ruhardad, DCC, and he gave me advice like, "Oh, you're running a city adventure by Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino, and every time they go
absolutely,
to a new place, just open up a description of a city,
yeah,
and that's the neighborhood or something, and it's incredible for weird
yeah.
fantasy role playing game. Just get that."
It's it's such a good game, such a good book. Someone else that I really enjoy for uh, that kind of writing is Jorge Luis Borges,
Yeah, from Argentina, right?
and from Argentina, yes, and he wrote
Yes.
a ton of short stories. He's like Borges is like also super accessible, and in a way, the short stories of Borges, I think they are.
Have you
Um,
ever talked to him? Like you said, he's super accessible. Have you heard?
no, the writing is accessible. No,
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's not
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. But I mean,
Um,
in the past, I don't know. What the
no, no,
fuck?
no. I've
Yeah.
never been blessed with that. The stories are in a way more gameable. Um, but there is
Do you
one that is,
remember a particular one
yeah,
that
I
would be
remember
really
one that is
gamble?
like, that is incredible, that came actually where some people were talking about it in the OSR blogosphere about 10 years ago. Um, and it's a short story. I can't remember all the details because I read it in, I don't know, 12 years ago. And it's called Tlon Ukbar Urbis Tertius. And it's about this planet. No, it's about an entry in an encyclopedia about this planet. That's
Hmm.
why it's called Tlon Ukbar Urbis Tertius, as in it's a third planet or around this star. And then there is a whole thing about uh, whether the encyclopedia where this entry appears exists or not, and whether it was really written. And I can't remember the details, but like I just recommend
Yeah,
just grab some Borges short stories and read them.
yeah.
Um, the most famous, now that it comes to mind, is called, I think, the Library of Babel.
It plays a lot
Yes,
with mixing reality with fiction and fiction
yes,
inside of fiction
yes,
itself, and then very
absolutely. The most famous is the Library of Babel, and it's this infinite library. Okay, it's not strictly infinite, but in every room there are a number of bookshelves. In all the bookshelves, I think there are 100. There are a bunch of books. Every book is, I think, 100 pages with a fixed number of lines, letters per line, per page, and they're just all completely random. But in the library, there are all the possible books of that length that could be ever made. So there is literally, potentially, everything in there.
but much of it would be incomprehensible, but you could find
Yes, of course,
really,
but
yeah.
with a bit
It's
of
being like
luck,
a treasure hunter, like
yes, with a bit of
hunting a
luck,
treasure.
you would be able to find anything in there. And by anything, I
Yeah,
mean even a book that is like more than 100 pages because it could be split into volumes. Actually,
yeah.
you will find a book split into volumes. And maybe the rest is just garbage or another book.
Have you ever used any of those inspirations in any of the game stuff that you made, like explicitly, or like even if it's just like tangentially, playing with those ideas, like you recall, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, like in Ghost
Uh,
Story by Calvino or by
I
someone.
can't remember. Something from Calvino and Borges definitely came back, but but in a kind of in a oblique way. So when I
Hmm.
put um, these cameos, I put them in a very bizarre inside joke way, and they put a lot of them. Like Tony Codex is filled with them. Um, uh, but yeah, I drove even from like our normal culture whenever I for whatever I write. For example, there was um, this spell in Marvel's and Malisons for the apotropaic magic, like the protection magic, uh, and it's the ritual of the seventh day. Uh, and it's essentially like a ritual that you do on the seventh day of the week. You do that, and it's the only thing you do in the day, and gives you like a boon for the rest of the week. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and this started because I remember reading this article about the origin of not doing anything on a Sunday, and I think it was because I think in Babylon, like in Mesopotamia, there was this creation myth that said that the God that made reality, made Earth, stopped on the seventh day, because any work that you make on the seventh day is kind of cursed. And that stuck me
Wow.
so much.
Yeah.
And so I put it in the spell, and I'm like, so you must not do anything else during the day, or you're gonna be like not good. Um, and a lot of these things end up in my game.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't necessarily build the core of the game idea, but
Oh yeah, but
definitely
it's
build the bricks. Maybe not all the bricks, but there are enough bricks in there to give it um, tone.
yeah, a taste, like a spice, and you can feel this influence and the weirdness, the magical reality, magical realism,
Yes.
as you were saying.
Um,
Yeah.
and in a way, back to the magical realism of Tony Codex, you play also within the school. Like there are laboratories, you do lessons and whatever. And like one of the advice in the books is, if you need to make up a school, don't use your primary school or your high school, because you remember by heart
Oh yeah.
the building. Like I remember perfectly like I have in my head the 3D map of every school I went to. And I remember where are the janitor's room and the various labs and the various classes, and in every single class I had like lectures. And the
And the
times I went to
clicks
explore
and
that.
the rivalries. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to like not focus much on that kind of social aspects. For example, in
Oh yeah.
Tony Codex, because it's mostly students together in the face of like teachers being mean.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Have you ever had main teachers? Have you ever had any kind of good relationship with teachers?
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. The teacher being mean is not like I had some mean teacher. Everybody had, I think,
Yeah,
uh,
everybody had that.
but I have like some had some extremely good teachers. I've been quite blessed for that. Um,
Yeah, but the focus of Cotonic is against the school itself, right?
it's more about against
The system.
the system. Yeah, more against academia than singular teachers, but they are also part of this, and they can't do much about it. And
Yeah.
they are making new things because they have needs of their own,
Yeah.
because they need to do things for the school. Um, it was kind of hilarious. You ask about teachers, and there is I, I was really good at chemistry, and I did 2 years of chemistry in high school before um, focusing on computing science for 3 years, for the remaining 3 years.
Mhm.
Um, and when my chemistry teacher found out I was not going to study chemistry, she got mega pissed. She got so
Wow.
cranky. Yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, really,
Wow.
I've been really blessed with a bunch of like teachers that were really good. In
Yeah, in a
general,
way, she probably cared a lot about you and saw maybe some potential. And yeah.
oh yeah, no, totally. I can hardly say that I don't think I have ever had a teacher that didn't care,
Oh, well,
which I feel
that's very good. Yeah.
that I
Do
feel that that's something that like sometimes happens, and it's kind of bad and sad.
Yeah, it does happen. Do you still work in with computer programming language?
Oh
Do
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
this?
absolutely. That's my main job. I'm doing. I work for a big European charity for cancer research.
Mm.
And I'm actually, however, starting to do, and I do IT for them. Follow their. Okay, I'm not going to bother anybody with my day job description here.
No, yeah, I actually like one of the questions I'm thinking about adding is like, who who are you outside of gaming and art and stuff? Because I think it's an important part to, because we draw, even though we make games and we draw for all this media and literature, we still draw a lot from our normie in life, like our secret identities in some way, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
I say. Like when I go to day job and they, oh, this is my secret identity. This is not me. This is like I'm Superman, and this is my Clark Kent.
Yes.
So who is your Clark Kent? Like who is
Well,
Paulo Greco
my
outside
Clark
of?
Kent is just like okay. I run Lost Pages as a second job, and that's taking more time because I'm doing projects that require more production effort. And since I do the layout myself most of the time, it just takes a while. Also because I'm super persnickety about it, so there are several layout revisions during production. Like Gob, I think we went through 5 different layouts before I decided that one was good enough. And Beyond the Pale as well. I can't remember how many restyling we've done. Um, uh, but yes, I'm an ETP professional. I do mostly um,
Do you like it? Do you like your day
website.
job?
Like,
Enjoy?
yeah, I really like it. I'm good at it. I enjoy the technical challenge,
Are the
and
people good? Like, do you deal with good people
yeah.
or?
And also, if I feel I think that the best thing is that I work for. Uh, okay, I don't treat cancer myself, but my effort goes to pay people that treat
Oh
cancer,
yeah,
and
yeah.
um,
It has a
it,
deep meaning.
it's
It's meaningful
incredibly
work in
rewarding.
some way. Yeah,
It's incredibly rewarding,
yeah.
um, and
That's very
but
important.
something.
To feel happy.
Yes, absolutely.
In a day job, in a job in general, it has to provide some meaning to you. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
I work
I
for a
work as a
bank.
tax
Yeah,
collector.
as a what? A tax collector.
Tax collector. Yeah.
Oh
When
wow.
you start to work this, you're like, oh, you're gonna tax people that has more money, so the government can spend to the people that has less money. And
Yeah,
theoretically, it's incredible. It would be a very fulfilling job. But the reality of it and how the politics, complete corrupt the legislation to work for the rich people. That's what it
yeah,
is.
that's what it
Yeah.
is. But yeah, I was saying something else that I'm actually starting to do is write software for small publishers.
Oh, nice.
I'm working on a project that, like, in the short term, is going to be like I was literally working on it this week. As in, I think yes, I still have the window open on my laptop. Is it's a like a website to make press kits. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a press
Oh.
kit.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and
I did
and
one
the,
for Primal Quest.
and the idea is that you have this form that you fill in, and then the press kit gets published. And if you want, you can download it and put it on your website, or I can just
Very
host it
nice.
for you for free.
It will help a
Uh,
lot of people. Yeah.
yeah, and like eventually it might evolve into an e-commerce marketplace, but that's going to require way more work. But yes, that's the idea. I'm also like starting to like I started last year to go to local video game jams,
Nice.
and they have
Do you
one.
make video games too? Like you mentioned, like making roguelikes. It is like
Yeah,
RPG
I
roguelikes or
yeah,
video
yeah,
game roguelikes.
RPG video game roguelikes. But like historically, most of my video game production has been multi-user dungeons that were kind of like MMORPGs, but with a
Hmm.
text interface. Before this was way before World of Warcraft was a thing. We're talking about 1980s, 1990s. I
Wow. Yeah.
started writing them in the late 90s. Basically, you would have just a text terminal with a description of the room, and you would type kill orc with sword, cast fireball at goblin, things like that. And
Nice.
I it was just a thing that stopped existing in about 2000 and early 2000s. There are
Hmm.
still some, but before um, networks, like before the internet got so fast that you could transmit all the data that you can now, you could not send much data over the wire. So the best way was to send some text
Yes.
with, for example, the results of combat action or the results of your interactions. Um,
Yeah. I remember being a teenager, like trying to look at naked people on the internet, and it takes so long. You know.
takes so long,
Yeah.
but nowadays,
Yeah,
no.
but I
No.
think isn't this kind of gaming, being revived because nowadays you're about vintage stuff, and then isn't there like any place you can experiment with this kind of stuff anymore, or just not so into it anymore?
I think like they like not so. I don't think there has been a mad revival yet, but I
Mhm.
remember, for example, for Text Adventure, which are the single player equivalent of MUDs, a few years ago they made this program called, I think, Twine,
Yeah,
that is used to like supports you for writing in what's called interactive fiction.
yeah,
So it's kind of like a multi-choice,
yeah, like
uh,
game books, like fighting
like game books.
fantasy.
Yes,
Yeah,
like the game books exactly. You could see interactive fiction and MUDs as a computer-driven game book.
yeah. Was it something like this that you made, or is it more open ended than that?
No, normally MUDs are built as a network of rooms, so there is a dungeon design aspect to it. And the type I played were um, of the Deku family. That, unless you know what I'm talking about, means absolutely nothing to you. But they were a sort of AD&D clone. And so you would go around with like your character and other players as well in a party and like fight monsters, gather treasure. Uh, it's a dungeon crawler, and like you get the keys to unlock other areas. And
Yeah,
I don't know. That was online gaming in the 90s.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we played this kind of stuff. I remember playing some of this kind of more like game books, but in BBS. It wasn't even internet. Like you would log into
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
person server and play the game they made there, and that was and that was awesome. Like we didn't have anything remotely more complex than that we could
Yeah.
play with someone else. So yeah.
I actually
Paul, do you
never
have
managed.
any?
Sorry,
Sorry,
go for it.
go
I
ahead.
never managed to log into a BBS myself because when I got a modem kind of late, and at the point everything was the internet. Like there were no BBS
Well,
local to me.
yeah, because here in Brazil, things are always arrive 10 years later. So you're probably messing up with the internet and hearing like, wow, BBS, so cool. And, and that's it. So, uh, but yeah, like I was born in 84, but I played with BBS when I was probably 8 or 9. So in the 90s. So we still had
Yeah.
things like here in Brazil. Uh, Paulo, do you have any kind of creative ritual that you do or that helps you get into the mood of working on your art, working on text or layouts or printmaking? Like some people
Uh,
listen to music, put on shoes, put on a funny hat, anything like this?
uh, no, no, I'm completely
Do you
no.
have a schedule at least, or like you like I don't. I work when I have time in between the crannies and things that I have to do, or do you manage to have a schedule for?
I don't. I also don't have a schedule. Like I found out that I work best in bursts. So okay, normally because of ADHD and cortisol stress response, this is activated by deadlines. But I learned not to wait for deadlines. So if I know that I have to work on something, I just sit down and do it. And maybe it takes me a few days to start doing it. Uh, and I do productive procrastination. So, for example, I do billable hours rather than working on a project, like billable hours for my day job. But eventually, the more I sit down to do it, the more I get like involved in it, and so it's like kind of like there is this process where my background brain fills up with a topic, and then all my brain thinks is about that topic, and I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that topic, and
And you
idly
have to do it.
goes back to it, and I just have to do it because it just claws at me, and until
Even
it's
even if
done.
it's in like midnight or 2 a.m., if you wake up, you have to go do it.
No, I'm not that bad, but I will stay in bed thinking about it or reading
Mm.
about it. Like I recently started to write more software again, and it's not something that in the past 2 or 3 years I've done much. So when I wake up at night, nowadays I literally go and read software engineering stuff.
Wow, yeah. Does this help you get back to sleep, or just you just keep reading until you're getting to work again?
It's irrelevant. It doesn't help me, but it's reading that I have to do anyway.
Yeah,
Well, no, it's a reading that profits me anyway, and I'm not sure if it helps me getting back to sleep, because if I do nothing, I don't fall asleep. Uh,
yeah,
and
yeah.
if I
You're
read
having the thoughts. Yeah,
yeah. But even if I meditate at night, like very often, if I'm tired enough, I can, and I can't sleep because my mind is restless. I do the famous time honored trick of meditating and then letting the concentration go. And that's just like I'm relaxed, my brain is shutting, I'm tired, and I just instantly fall asleep.
wow, yeah.
That is like
I gotta
actually
try
a
that.
typical.
Yeah,
It's a typical mistakes that many beginners do, and they like put themselves in a relaxation state. But letting go of the meditation while being relaxed, if you're tired, it's an excellent way to go to sleep.
yeah. I caught myself sleeping while trying to meditate, and that's probably yeah. Just stop now and go to bed.
I wouldn't say that that was a successful meditation, but it was a successful relaxation. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
like excellent.
we we,
Sometimes it's
we
exactly
yeah
what we
we
need.
yeah we get what we can get sometimes too, right?
Yeah.
Uh, are you working on any particular project right now that you would feel comfortable talking about and sharing maybe your
Uh,
favorite parts and the weirdest part of the project for you?
so at the moment, I finally Wolfwald is at the printer, as in like they are assembling it now. It's going to be done in 2 weeks.
Wow, great.
And I'm waiting for the last piece of art for before sending beyond the pale to press. We One of the stretch goals was a custom book plate for the book, so you can just write your name on it
Hmm.
in the inside cover. We're just waiting on Ezra to deliver they delivered the sketch. The sketch was good. And so I'm just waiting for that to put in the end paper. The other project I'm sort of working on is called changed name several times. It
As it
originally it
should,
was called
because the work
yes,
changes, so you have to
the word
change
changes.
the name. Yeah.
And it started, so it was called Lost Ubar after this city that sometimes is known as the Atlantis of the Sands. It's
Wow.
one of those cities that was in Arabia. It was on the route for the frankincense to go, I think, to Oman from um, from the Mediterranean. And at some point, it stopped being on maps. Like that city
Hmm.
vanished, and
Wow.
nobody knew where it was. It just like for I don't know, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, can't remember. And then they possibly found the ruins of the city, and what they thought killed the city was that they pulled so much water from the reservoir under the city for
Yeah.
the oasis that the pressure of the water stopped being there, and so the city collapsed.
Wow.
And I have a bit of I'm in love with the concept of cities dying, because they leave so much behind.
Oh yeah.
As in, so much stuff. I'm not like beside the tragedy of the people
No, yeah,
that they.
the history, the objects they left there, like
Yeah, yeah,
paintings,
like
bookings,
my
diaries.
archaeology. Yeah, absolutely. Like my
Yeah.
archaeologist friends say that like some of their best find are like running through garbage.
Murals. Oh yeah.
But yeah, imagine like if your neighborhood just everybody left and left behind everything. Um, and yeah, so I started writing this game um, about these people that had to abandon their city because of a catastrophe, um, and they're going back to the city. And the city is dead, as in they're not even like. So it's a
And animals,
dungeoneering.
creatures.
Yeah, it's a dungeon. It's a kind of dungeoneering game. You go back to the ruin of your old city. Part of this was how to do non-colonial dungeon running,
Oh yeah.
obsessed with recovering cultural artifacts, because you're recovering cultural artifacts from your own culture. So in a
Yeah.
way, you are part, like you literally play part of the diaspora. You're going back to your civilization to recover part of your, in a way, dying culture.
Yeah. Your
Uh,
past, your
yeah.
ancestors in some
Uh,
way.
so yes, exactly. Well, the game is deliberately unclear and anti-canon about what actually happened. Like you're not supposed to talk about it. So to leave it
Hmm.
uh, more grayed out and
Yeah,
unfocused.
and probably
Uh,
each group, even if you don't
will
talk
be
about each
different.
group, will
Yes,
figure
absolutely.
something out. So yeah,
We'll figure something out.
which is great.
But
Which each
well,
game will be completely unique. Yeah.
absolutely. But as you go through the ruins, the only kind of opposition from the ruins will be kind of the dangers left. That could be either crumbling ruins, could be bad health and safety, in modern speak, um, or it could be the magic artifact left behind unchecked for decades. Could be the golems, demons, and undead that have been there. Could be
Any other survivors or
during
no?
the catastrophe. No, there are no survivors.
Okay.
Like the game is
Only
kind
you.
kind of clear. Like
Okay.
everybody left. You are back because you're obsessed by recovering. Like every character has a drive for going back to the city. And you're not an adventurer. You're like a common person that happens to be an adventurer. So if you're there and bad stuff happens to you, you have risk of getting too much heartbreak and having to retire. Yeah, you don't retire like your character might die, but it's much more probable that the character retires because of heartbreak, because being there is just too painful.
Yeah.
And so as you go back and you retire in what's called home away from home. So the ancient city is called home. As you go back to home away from home, which is literally your communal home where your community lives now, your character retires and becomes part of the legacy. So you assume a role in the home to help the other adventurers. It's sort of similar to a legacy aspect in computer games or in board games,
Hmm.
but basically, a retired character becomes an NPC, and you build a part of the home to house them and to enable them in order to support you.
Oh,
Um,
so there will be other adventurers. That's like not necessarily survivors in that city, but other like descendants from this
yes,
lost
yeah, yeah,
city and civilization. And
yes, absolutely.
would there be possibly conflict, like different other
Um,
or
I,
no?
I
Just
think that
the things that are
the
left there.
I haven't really play tested that much, but I found that so far the game is compelling enough in going back
Yeah,
in and reckoning with what was
the past.
actually going on in the city. And what wasn't actually going on in the city is that the city was like home was sort of like run by these powerful wizards or other powerful people that did
Terrible things.
their sort of
Unconsequential things. Yeah.
dangerous things that like if left unchecked for decades could turn up to be even worse. So
Yeah.
for example, in one of the adventure I play tested, um, there was a demon bound in a kiln for pottery, like a fire demon. So the wizard would
Hmm.
just put the balls in the kiln and keep the demon closed in. Um, but during the catastrophe, the kiln toppled and crushed, uh, like literally squeezed the wizard that couldn't move because it was kept down by the kiln. Didn't die because of the fire, because he had a ring of fire resistance. So there is this perfectly sort of like not even baked wizard corpse under a half collapsed kiln. Um, and you have to deal with these sort of like unchecked magic slash biological slash natural disasters that were harnessed by your civilization. This was written during lockdown
Hmm.
because in northern Italy, where my parents lived, a bunch of people were dying and they couldn't even do
Yeah.
anything about it. So I was incredibly homesick. And like the only way I could deal with this was to write this song and just obsessively playing video games for 6 months. Because the reality of not being able to go and help my dying parents was just too much to contemplate. Until one day, I just remember waking up in the middle of the night, crying for it for hours, and then go like, "Okay, I dealt with it emotionally. I'll be fine now."
And how are you? How are them?
Oh, they're
How?
fine.
Oh,
I
that's
think my parents got COVID when I got COVID when I was in Italy in December, like for the first time because I've been all right.
oh, yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
remember seeing it and like the trucks and it was like, yeah, here in Brazil, like we have a big Italian colony and we see a lot of similarities to Italy, and like we're on the shitter here, and like yeah, just like in Italy, like yeah, we are like in that too. Like it was rough.
it, it was very rough, like emotionally rough.
Yeah.
Like I also got COVID. Like I think I brought COVID to Scotland. Like I don't think I passed it on, but I literally got COVID probably on a plane flying back from America. Um, a few days
Yeah.
later, I got here. Like I got here, and a couple of days later, I got sick. So
Yeah, well, it happens. How was COVID for you? I mean, uh, I was pretty down. Like I if I did the dishes, I would be like out of breath and very tired, and was terrible.
I
Like 3
remember,
days of being unable to do anything. Was just laying down and drinking
yeah,
liquids and
yeah, absolutely.
doing nothing.
The first time, I couldn't even get diagnosed because there was nothing of the infrastructure that we have today for COVID.
No.
There were not even masks available because people bought everything, all the masks that were there, and we didn't have like a massive industry for PPE as we have now. Um, so what happened is that like I had like a very ferocious like nose throat infection for
Yeah.
4 or 5 days, and then I got mega tired. By mega tired, I mean wake up in the morning, make myself a cappuccino, go to the living room, sit at the desk, work for half an hour, and then be too tired to sit at at a desk and go go lie down after half an hour of sitting up.
Yeah.
That was how bad it was. And after 10 days of that,
Wow.
I got fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were the ones that made it, so it's probably way worse than that. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hello weirdos, this is Diogo Nogueira and I'm back with a word from our sponsors. Me! I just released a new game called Cosmosaurus, in which you play a dinosaur space ranger who protects the galaxy from evil threats such as slime bankers, undead pirates, and Cosmosaurus from a void dimension. It's a game with a runes light system inspired by Forged in the Dark and Lasers and Feelings. It comes with a bunch of tables for you to generate content for it. If you know my games, they're really easy to play and they have tools to help you improvise and play with low prep. It's an ideal game for one-shots, short campaigns, and introducing new people to the hobby, and it's a really perfect family game. I play with my kids all the time. It's a game inspired by Saturday morning cartoons. It's really well illustrated by Lucas Kowalski from Poland and with a great layout by Guilherme Gontijo. It's a really fun game. You should check it out on DriveThruRPG, itch.io, or exclusively in print on exaltedfuneral.com. I have many other games there, check them out. All the links are in the show notes, so click there. And let's get back to Weird with our chat.
We talked about other creators, and you talked about Jorge Luis Borges and Italo Calvino, and I was just wondering, is there any other creator or artist that not only inspires the themes and the things you work in your art and inspires like your creativity, but maybe any other kind of creator or artist that inspires the way they do the work or the way they approach their craft. As you said, like Italians are very into the craft part of things, like even in writing or making your other hobbies. There's anyone from you learned
Oh,
how
yeah.
to approach your craft?
For writing, for English, my favorite writer is Lord Plunkett. Sorry, Lord Anthony, Richard Plunkett. He wrote the Time and the Gods. He wrote Pegana. He wrote the Book of Wonder, the second Book of Wonder. He's of the generation of fantasy writer before Tolkien. Tolkien read Dunsany and didn't like him. Dunsany wrote a bunch of short stories, all of them excruciatingly sad. And I love their tone, and I feel they are the perfect vibe for my games. Like my fantasy games are set into these kind of like sun-scorched places. Like they're very Mediterranean. So like they're very sunny, and there is a bunch of travel, and there are a lot of like stone buildings, and a lot of civilization is in like urban urban adventure, and like my players spend a lot of time in the countryside talking with people. It's kind of weird, but also there is like super bizarre like magic ritual. There is like a strong element of worship, for example, and all these elements I feel they are quite strong in Danceny, and I try to go for matching vibes. For Knock, no, for the Fantasy Bestiary, which was published by the Mary Marshman, I actually my entry was in fact Danceny pastiche. So I wrote the entry for the Knolls using the voice of Danceny. Uh, because I read a bunch of stuff and I just love it. I haven't read everything they wrote, but for example, like I read also some theater plays that he wrote. Um, And one of them is incredible. It's called The Gods of the Mountains, and it's about this gang of thieves, this gang that knows that there are. They say, like one of them thinks, "Oh, we should totally get we should steal a lot of green fabric so we can dress up, we can cosplay as the gods of the mountains." And there are these giant greenstone statues carved on this mountainside. And so they basically cosplay as the gods of the mountain. They go in the next village, and they don't say that they are the gods of the mountains, but people like there are, I think, 7 like the god of the mountains. They're dressed kind of in the same way as the gods of the mountains, and so people treat them like gods and like bring them like delicious food and so on. And then like it goes horrible. It goes like these. The Danzani stories have the quality of ending really sadly in a way that is whole. Like, and you feel the story completes in this very sad way.
It's sad, but it's satisfying in a way, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's also incredibly wistful, and like you like I don't know, like sometimes like it ends in this very sad way, and you feel, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I should check that out. And I heard a lot about it. And isn't it in the appendix N too, like Lord
Yeah, yeah,
Dunsey?
it's totally
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
appendix.
yeah. Yeah,
I think the King of Elfland's daughter is in the appendix.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
This is the folks talk a lot about Dunsey and the weird fantasy and its
yeah, and I
aspect in
also
the work.
try to also like okay, personally, I don't like clerics in D&D. The reason I don't like clerics in D&D is because they take a character that is ostensibly about worship and belief. However, there are no mechanics that support this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, but at least in
worship,
D&D, right? Yeah.
yes, in D&D, in traditional D&D, there are no mechanics that support how
The
faithful and
religious part of, yeah.
yeah, the religious part of it. And in part, it's because like the cleric started as a bespoke class for a vampire hunter, and in part because D&D. I mean, it was groundbreaking for I don't know 50 years ago, but it clearly like objectively for today's standards is not a like
Yeah.
it's a perfectible, like it's not a great design. I don't particularly enjoy the way characters are handled, especially. But beside
Mm.
that, like I really don't like clerics. So what I've done in my games is separate religion from clerical magic. So my wizards cast all magic. So there are more wizards in the group, and that's fine. But also everybody can worship. So, for example, there are the way shrines of Saint Ulter, and if you pray at the way shrine of Saint Ulter, you're guaranteed to find your way home. But then you have to build a way shrine of Saint Ulter yourself,
Mm.
or else you might get terribly lost again. And
That's a great touch. Does this always work? And this always working in reverse?
well,
And then
it really depends. Like there are some game mechanics there, so it really depends on
yeah,
how much of your personal, like of a much of a commitment your character makes. Like if it's a light commitment, uh, you have like like a bonus to like fate locks or saves to go home. But if you make a strong commitment, you will get there.
okay,
But you have to pay the price,
of course.
which I also found to be quite good
It's
magic.
Yeah, it's great, and it's discernible, integrated, and they know the price, so they make an informed choice, and that
Yeah,
choice will lead to further adventure. Because if they don't
yeah,
build it,
absolutely.
they have another adventure for this. They get lost again, and they have to do something else. It's
Uh,
fantastic.
yeah, and I think I was inspired in Push More for this by Stonehell by I think Curtis, right?
Yeah, Michael Curtis.
Yeah, that he wasn't on your show a while ago. I listened to the
Yeah,
yeah, and in Stonehell
he's
there are a
incredible.
lot of like these shrines that you can worship at and get perks and get bonuses, and that's fine. In a way, it's a mechanicistic. In a way, it's also the way religion is treated in many parts of the world, like uh, bringing offerings to the god of the sea before you went on a sea trip was totally normal.
Yeah,
And yeah, I don't know.
it's
I
great, and then
definitely like on my altar downstairs. Like I don't believe in magic. Like I don't believe in the supernatural. However, I have like quite a strong magic practice. Like on my altar, I have a bunch of like amulets because they don't hurt. Like I have at least 4 Nazars in the house. You know the glass eye, the blue glass eye.
hmm
I have friends that bring me Nazars as a gift because they see them around the house. And here on my desk, on top of the screen, there is a tiny. So this is my statue of Ganesh,
mm.
and Ganesh is also the protector of engineers and
Oh
overcoming
yeah,
problems. And so, as a software engineer, sometimes I I speak to the idol. There is this technique called the rubber duck technique. That is when you're completely stumped on a problem, you grab a
hmm
rubber duck and you explain the problem in terms that a rubber duck could understand. And so this
mm.
activity of explanation usually makes you connect with the problem in a different way that leads to the resolution.
Yeah, you're explaining to yourself in a way, in a more
Yes.
clear and accessible way, as you said, and helps you think. That's how oracle. I think that's how tarot and other oracles work.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
absolutely,
Not
absolutely.
necessarily they see the future, but they give you signs and symbols that help you think through them. They are tools to organize your thoughts in a way,
Your
right?
pattern, yeah, they engage with the pattern matching of the brain, so there are gaps, and you fill in the gaps. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh, I
yeah.
I had some major personal development driven by tarot reading,
Oh yeah.
and I actually
Can you
had
talk about
like
it a little bit,
yeah, absolutely.
if you can? Yeah, because I think this
Uh,
conversation is gonna lead us to. I'm gonna ask you about anyway about religion, spirituality, and philosophy. But
yeah, yeah.
since we're already going there, so let's talk about
Um,
having tarot. So, what your experience with tarot? I mean, you said
so
you had
tarot, I
revelations
started.
and
I was okay. I was really sort of obsessed with magic when it was a tween, and then around 13, 14, I started to study more science, and I found science to be more reliable. So I kind of abandoned magic, except like
but
I'm still
but
left
then you
with
magic in like really magic or like illusionism and magic
uh,
shows.
I was really into divination and ESP and
Okay,
astrology and other magic practices. And
yeah,
what I had access to when I was 12, it was an there were no I had no access to other kind of less mainstream magic.
hmm
Nowadays, Um, there are access to, for example, weekend books is much easier.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1991 in Italy, unless you
It
went
wasn't.
to the esoteric library in Milan city center, it was like hard to actually get those books. Also, you had no idea what to look for. Like, to
Yeah.
know that you want to read something, you need to know that there is that something.
Yeah.
Um, and so I stopped, and then I started again doing a lot of meditation. As like I had some, because of personal trauma, I just realized I was like spinning in my bad thoughts. Um, I started to meditate, and I started to actually develop some visualization. I have a very strong mind's eye, like an extremely strong mind's eye. And so started to develop new meditation, like new visualization techniques during meditation to deal with different things, and to process different things. Uh, and in a way, like I was talking with another game designer um, that also has some experience with the supernatural, and actually was in a Buddhist temple for a while, like as a monk. I'm not going
Oh.
to say the name, but he's an OSR person. Um, Doing those visualization for me is the closest I've done to casting spells. Like, I don't really believe that it has any kind of supernatural effect, but it
But
doesn't need
if it does has an effect on you, it's an effect
exactly.
anyway,
Like,
right?
does it have like what I say is I'm satisfied with being certain that there is a good psychosocial effect. So my psychology is improved, and there is a
Yeah.
small, like, sometimes there is a social effect when you do the ritual for other people, um, support, sounding them, letting them get some like social energy about their feelings and their idea, and supporting them. Um, and as I say, I don't need belief in magic for magic to work.
Yeah.
It's a very agnostic approach to it. It might work. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it
If
might
the
have some.
effects can be felt and it's real for those person partaking that experience, that's more than
Yes.
enough, right?
And a while ago, I started to do fires for the high festivals. So burning things for winters and summer solstice. And I always wanted to have a fire for winter solstice. I went to winter solstice fires in Italy. Uh, we still do them in the countryside. They're called like St. John's fire or whatever they're called. I can't remember. And you make vin brûlé, like you
Well,
mulled
we
wine
do here
on
in
the fire.
Brazil. We have like Festa de São João. I don't know if that's same thing. Like,
Yeah, but most probably. And I remember going to these fires, so I started to make them in my garden every solstice. I make a fire in the garden. I didn't this year because I was sick, and I miss it. I think I'm gonna make a late solstice fire in a while. But on that day, I just realized that the winter solstice festival is not only about, hey, we survived the first part of winter, let's have a party because it's the darkest night of the year, and also the sun is going to be reborn and all of that jazz. But also, very importantly, the it's about letting things go. You make a fire and you destroy the things that you need to go.
hmm.
So I had people like, the second time I've done it, I had people bring clothes from their exes to burn on the fire, contract from their previous employers, uh, tiny bags with fragments of things they didn't want to tell me about.
Hmm.
Um,
What
I
kind of
burned
stuff
them.
do you have destroyed?
I burned a book. a book that made me really upset. I didn't burn a book for censorship reason, but
No,
because
yeah,
that book
no.
made
It's about
also
you. It's not about the
yeah, yeah,
book.
yeah. It's about me. Also, it's a book that is always going to be available. Like I have zero worry
Yeah.
that like it's going to be the last copy of the book. It was a cheap paperback, but the book made me so upset that
Why?
I am I don't feel
Okay, okay.
it's not I don't feel okay sharing it. It made
Okay.
me so upset that the only way I could deal with it was just like to literally tear every single page off and toss it into the
Yeah.
fire. Um, and also, like there is the part where, like in the write we made, there is the part where we write a scroll with a spiral. With the things we don't want to have, and we toss it with a counterclockwise spiral, and we toss it in the fire going counterclockwise, and then we make another scroll with a clockwise spiral, and going around the fire in a clockwise pattern. We throw the parchment in, and that's like a typical repulsion and attraction kind of more
Mm-hmm.
pagan right. But there is also like it's a very mindful, like this whole fire ritual is extremely mindful. Like you literally have to go through the work of thinking about all these things.
Yeah.
What am I going to burn? Why am I burning it?
Yeah.
Why do I need to leave behind? What is it that I need to cleanse? Because at some point you need to let things go.
That's what makes all the difference, I think.
Yeah,
I was
and
talking to a friend about those things that people say, like the universe conspires, even in favor or against you, and it's really about what are you really paying attention, what are you seeking. Like, it's not that you're attracting, but you're paying attention for this kind of stuff. When those stuff appears, you pay more. You quickly see them, but if your mind is always on something else, those opportunities, those things will
absolutely,
happen, and they will just pass by.
yeah, yeah. And we did a similar thing with the summer solstice. We made a fire and we burned a bit of things that were meant to us, but in a way to signify, oh, this is so abundant that I can burn a fragment of it. But also in a way, I'm letting this is meant a lot to me. So it's what this matters to me so much that I'm going to sacrifice some of it as a way of
Oh yeah, not being hold on too much or something until it kind of suffocates. We have
yeah,
to, even the good stuff, we have to kind of learn to let go because it can be taken away for us without us knowing. So we have to be prepared that this is kind of temporary. There is a teaching from philosophy that I take to heart a lot to help me deal with laws and stuff. That's everything we have is not ours; it's just landed. Like
yeah,
even our loved ones, it's just landed to us for a while, and we don't know when we'll have to return it. Right?
yeah, and uh, yeah. And so for like other things that like right wise that I do, for example, like I sometimes find hard to meditate on without a focus, and I found that something that really helps me to meditate um, is to light a candle and meditate on the flame.
Mm.
That also ties very much with my impulsivity with the fire element that I found to be my, in a way, determinant. And with my keenness on pyromancers.
Can I say something? I find it kind of interesting. Like I asked you about any kind of creative ritual, which I kind of feel like creative work, like making art, writing or something, it's something very magical because like we're creating something that wasn't there somehow. But
Yeah,
you don't have anything for them. But like for other things, you have a bunch of rituals for other things. Like do you never felt the need of having something to even invoke the muse or something like to help with this magic that is art or no?
to be honest, no. The only
Have you
thing
ever
that helped
tried anything? Oh no.
No, because like for example, like something that I know helps is go to a place where I only create.
Oh yeah.
For example, for me, I have a room in my house that is only for work. I literally here have only the computer, like art stuff. You can see behind me,
Hmm.
plants, and the exercise bike. There is nothing else. So for me, going to the place of creation makes me create.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if I'm the place of
it is a
creation,
ritual in a way. Yeah.
yes, and it's going to the creation place. So, for
Hmm.
example, like it really helps for me. Like, for example, when I used to go to the print studio in town, I used to go there and just like for hours
Yeah,
grind
it's
the
kind
project.
of like in those stories, like the witch's hut. The witches go there, do their magic, and then get out. Like the
And get out.
shaman's cave, they go there, do their magic, and get out.
Yes,
Yeah,
like for me, the only thing that works is being drugged enough, and by drugged enough, I mean ADHD medication and caffeine. Um, I tried to do creative stuff with other things, and it didn't go at
yeah.
all.
That I ask
Sometimes I have like
about this. Yeah, I ask
sometimes I have
about this
like a
in front
tiny
of
amount
time.
of alcohol that helps me writing, but just like it's not even a shot. Like it's just like a
Wow.
tiny bit of liquor. Um, no, but like from a personal perspective, I think that some of the best. So in a few hours, a few days, years ago, I had a very emotionally taxing relationship that pushed me to like a very bad place. And from there, I just like realized that there were a bunch of things wrong with myself that I never could see um, until then. And so I worked on them. And like I must admit that like in the past couple of years, like my interior, like I feel much whole, like much more whole than I was that I've been in my entire life. As in, for example, like even my emotional response is much more measured because I'm more aware of it. And because I know more
Yeah,
of my triggers and I know most of a bunch of my problems, and I dealt with a lot of them. Um,
awareness is everything. Yeah,
Awareness
self
is
knowledge. Yeah,
knowing your enemy, especially when your enemy is
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, for
And
sure.
something I've done in the past years, for the first time, I took mushrooms, not enough
Oh,
to have like hallucinations, like maybe
okay.
a bit of sparkle,
Hmm.
but
Like microdosing or something, or just more
no, no,
than a
no. Like
microdose.
it's about microdose because like the it was it was a visible experience. It was marginally visible, but like yeah, taking mushrooms was it's kind of weird to say that it made me get in touch with a part of myself that I didn't know needed to be in touch with. And there's been some very strong
But was it,
work there. And
you didn't need to, but did it help you grow in any way? Did you learn anything from
no,
yourself?
I feel I really needed it. Like I had an emotional, like I think I did like mushrooms 3 or 4 times. And the last time was like 6 months ago, maybe.
So it's positive.
And
Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it again. I would say. I would
no,
guess.
but I don't feel the need to. I probably
No,
will,
no,
but
not need to.
uh,
But it is
I don't.
an
It,
experience.
it, it wasn't even at some point. I never like. It was a bit recreational, but it wasn't even like recreational. Like I used to get drunk
Yeah,
to have fun. Uh, I had a bit of like functional alcoholism phase in my
yeah,
twenties.
it's different.
It's
Like
not. This was like completely different.
yeah, I take mushrooms sometimes, and it's not about yo, let's have fun. But I mean, I
Yeah,
can go out in the sun and in the grass and feel feel so much better. Like you feel the warmth, you feel the colors, you become more present. Remember we were talking about living up here in the thought cloud and getting down and becoming being yourself in the presence. be present a little bit more, and mushrooms help with that a lot, I
Yeah,
think.
so much. And yeah, it's kind of, I feel a
I've
bit
heard it
sad that.
compared to deep states of meditation. I don't know how true is that. I do try meditation sometimes, and there was once that I think I was really deep, and then I kind of felt some of the same sensations, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't know, but it does help me, feel and make some connections, as you said, like being aware of stuff that I wasn't aware before, and at the time it
Mhm.
was quite uncomfortable, but now I'm it's part of me, and I think it's useful to get to know those parts that sometimes you shut off because I don't know, things that happened in the past. So
Yeah, I guess yes. I've been in pretty deep meditation states before, uh, but for maybe because of the ADHD, that like literally like different kind of brain stimulants affect people with ADHD in different
oh yeah.
ways. Uh, like one of my favorite jokes is about ADHD, about diagnosing ADHD is, have you tried cocaine? Was it boring? Yes, you probably have ADHD. Because the stimulation that you need is enough to quiet your brain. And so like, okay, this feels kind of boring. Um,
Have you ever tried cocaine or no?
yeah, it was boring.
Oh wow.
It was not fun. And even like I'm on Ritalin, which is methylphenidate, is not the fun drugs for it, the fun drug for ADHD.
But it
Uh,
helps with concentration. I
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
a friend that does.
It
Yeah.
really helps concentration, but it's really not fun. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to say I have a bad time, but it makes my the rest of my life like slightly worse. On the other hand, the price of not taking it is being kind of not great at my job and not getting anything done and living in a pigsty. So
Yeah.
that's a good trade-off.
But Paul, I mean, I think we talked a lot, but we didn't got to the tarot thing, right? You said like you
Oh
had
yeah.
big revelations of the tarot thing, and I'm not complaining. Like, the talk was great, like, but let's try to get to that one if you
So
can, like
the,
if it
yeah,
was just one thing, like if you can
uh,
share.
there has been there have been like three things actually. Like I can talk like a bit of each. The first one was when I did myself a tarot reading, and there is this beautiful spread that is only three cards, and there is a character that is in the middle,
Hmm.
and there are two cards on the side. So you go through the deck until you get a member of the court, or like actually a card with a figure. Could be one of the
Hmm.
major arcanas, could be a member of the court or whatever, and that goes in the middle. And then on the two sides, you get two other cards. And what happens is that you're actually looking at the scene, and the determinant, as in like you, like most of the time the reading is done, is that the querent is the person in the central card.
Hmm.
And depending on what the central card is, that's the character. That's what essentially what you're doing. And the two cards on the side, you can look at how the figure interacts and which way it looks at the two other cards to answer your question. So for me, like the first time I used it, there was it came out the uh, I think it was the the page of swords, which is very me. Like it's like it's how I see me. It's like kind of
Can
like
you explain a little bit why?
there is like swords are a symbol of intellect, So and I see myself as a strongly intellectual person. Like for me, it's like like you could say I'm an intellectual. Like I define myself an intellectual.
Yeah,
I,
I see
I try
that
to be
too.
not
Yeah.
wonky at it. I try to make it in a non-wonky way, but for me, that kind
Yeah,
of
I
stuff
think
is.
the weirdos who listen to this will agree with you for sure.
Thank you. And on it was like, what should I do with my life and with my art and with my writing? And like on a side, there was uh, the ace of coins, and my character was looking away from it, and it was looking toward another card, which I don't have my notes here, but it was more about personal attainment and success on your own terms.
Mm.
So I was literally not caring. Like the spread was telling me, Paolo, you're just not caring about being rich in this. You just don't care. You're doing it for the actualization, and that's totally valid. Like I've been preaching that, and I've been doing that, and I know I could have made way more financially successful projects if I had cared. And but those are
Have
not
you
the
ever
books. Those are
have you
not the
ever
books I
cared
want to
about
make.
this? Yeah, have you ever
Uh,
cared about making money, and did that
it's
help
it,
you?
it's great
Get
because like I mean money is great because everybody wants to pay
yeah,
their bills and have a nice
yeah, of
stuff.
course. Yeah,
And ideally not having to work anymore is a goal. Like early
yeah, of
retirement, could be great. So you have time to
course.
do
Yeah,
whatever you want. So you don't have
to do your
to
art the way you want to do, right?
like. It's
That's
not
my
like you stop
dream.
working, but you stop
Yeah,
laboring. You stop
yes,
laboring for a
that's it.
living, which
That's it.
is super important. But in a way, my work, I enjoy my day job. I find it super rewarding, and it gives me a comfortable lifestyle, and I'm good at it, and I feel great when things go well at it. So I never really cared much about that. Like I'm emotionally, like I'm sorry, financially satisfied. I don't need to make more money. More money is great. It's great that I
Yeah,
can make good books that also authors can get their profits, and we can pay artists and whatnot, and can make people have good fantasy games and be excited about our
yeah,
books. But that's literally all I can ask for. Like I don't really care about like I'm not saying, hey Paolo, would you like to make a few $1 million with a
yeah.
Kickstarter? I would say, yeah, I would like to, so I don't have
No,
to
of
work
course.
anymore after I'm done. But like, it's not really like financial success is not my driver.
Yeah.
Um,
My question was like, did the reading help you accept that better?
oh
Have
yes,
you
yes,
ever?
it was
Yeah.
like every time I have like one of these reading, even in the following two, it's like clearly, uh, finally I can see that like the truth has been in front of me all along.
And that's okay, and I'm fine with that, and that's
That's
yeah,
totally
and
fine. The
yeah,
other one was at Esoterica, which is this occultism conference in Berlin, and there was a workshop on tarot reading, and someone was inquiring about like, oh, I had this relationship, it broke my heart, and what should I do, and blah blah blah, and whatever. And that was also the situation I was in because of that relationship I mentioned before. And so the spread went to totally meant totally sense. And then the last card, as in like the outcome, was like the devil, which is like the card of personal empowerment. And it's like the responsibility is completely yours now. Make what you want of your life. Do what you will shall be the only law. And so that like really helped me like realize that I was stuck there because I was not moving on, and that really helped me moving on.
Yeah. Yeah. And those things really, it's like we're seeing ourselves from the outside, right? We can better because when we are living through stuff, like we can't observe from the outside, but those symbols help us see
Yeah,
representation and signs of
absolutely.
stuff that's happening with us, and we can examine them from, oh yeah, now I see how things are, and then
And like
they
in
can
a
be so
way, like
helpful.
we're blessed with apophenia, which is that thing where it makes you see faces in the clouds and on cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not only for visual things. We just like complete patterns uh, with what comes out of our thoughts, and this is great because all the tarot says is I'm gonna put out some archetypal things that happen in people's lives. How does this
Yeah.
relate with yourself? And this is why it works. It's not in a way, it doesn't need to be magical. It's just like, hey, what does your brain feel about this? What do
Yeah.
you feel about this? What kind of emotions do you bring out?
Yeah. It's a
And the
great tool for
third,
reflection. Yeah.
yes, and the third one, which in temporal order is actually between the two, is one day I was like doing watercolors with this person I was dating, and then I realized, oh, probably should like maybe I can I can draw a tarot card. Uh, so I start to draw something, and like it doesn't work for me, and so I start to draw the tower. And they said, "Oh wow, the tower, that's like highly cursed." And like everybody that like I said this, I was like, "Did you start drawing your own tarot deck from the tower?"
Wow.
Uh,
That's ominous, right?
yes, and to be
Yeah.
honest, like 10 days later, we broke up, and it was like in a state for months, and it was like really possibly one of the worst times I had in a long time.
Wow.
Um, but the tower says that we held wrong beliefs, and the downfall out of like the downfall caused by new learning and by understanding is painful, but it's part of the way.
Yeah. And but it can be, I can like this phrase that said like every pain is a lesson, like every stuff that you suffer, like you, like I always like when stuff happens, we always resist a lot, like but a lot of times it carries us to a better place. Like I don't know if it happens to you with this relationship, but I remember like something in my work, that I was really comfortable working someplace, and because I've resisted, some of the stuff that happens being a tax collector in a corrupt city. I said no to a bunch of, and they just shoved me somewhere else to do some other job, and I was pissed. But it ended up being a job that is sometimes more satisfying than what I was doing, and gives me more free time. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's some bad stuff happens, and then it's hard to. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm
Even
not
even like
trying to talk for you, but did you
no, no.
feel
But
it
even
was
for
really
me,
hard?
like for example, for me coming to Scotland was because I was like highly dissatisfied and sad about my life in Milan, so I needed a
Yeah,
change. And then I come here and I found that like yeah, changing your circumstances definitely changes what's going on with you, but also wherever you go, there you are. So I
yeah,
brought with me a bunch of my problems,
yeah,
but changing the environment showed me what the problems were.
yeah,
So at least I could do something about them.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, these like it was coming here. There's been a period that was like super like emotionally difficult. Also, Scotland is dark and rainy.
yeah. It's very
Uh,
different from Italy, I would say. Right?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
very different. and it's dark and rainy, and I love Glasgow, and people here are amazing. Like it's the reason the people are the reason why I'm here.
That's good. But
But
you're
like
saying about,
living so far north in the winter is terrible. I
I
have like
imagine now.
I have, around the house, not now, but I have
Uh,
mega bright lights for
uh,
when it's very bad. Like if I see
wow.
myself getting sad for no reason whatsoever, I just turn on all the bright lights, and I'm like, I'm better now.
I remember seeing like a joke in YouTube. This YouTuber from London, and there is sun in the sky, and then like, what the fuck is this ball of fire in the sky? Like
It's a
something
day
I never
star.
seen this. Yeah. Paul, you're saying you move it, and the problems move it with you, and we talked about magic and some form of spirituality. What I'm curious about is, do you have anything that helps you, get through those difficult phases, difficult moments, with HD? Do you have any kind of philosophy or teaching or values? And if you do, could share a little bit about your experience with them and how you learned to use these tools to help you get through life.
I think meditation has been great.
Yeah.
Uh, Meditation has been great. And the more I do it, the better and more effective it becomes. Uh, Journaling about painful stuff is also great. I have like a tiny notebook gifted by a friend that I use only
Do you write it every
to.
day or
No, no,
just
no.
eventually?
It's just like the worst selection of my bad mental states. Like when there is some super painful stuff, or like or conclusion or realization of one of these like difficult things, I just write it in there. Um, there
And
is
how do you say this helps you? Does this helps you offload the things from your mind? Because for me, kind of reminds me some when I have a lot of stuff in my mind that I have to do, and then I get lost, and I even get stuck, and I can't do anything. If I put them down, kind of empties my mind, and I can concentrate on each one
in a way
individually.
it
How?
wasn't really for that, but it was as a kind of like um, a way of like a diary, as in like this is what
Mm-hmm.
happened, I better write it down, as in like take notes of terrible stuff that you're feeling about the terrible stuff that haunts you, um, and
Mm-hmm.
then you go and look at it again and you can think about it again, and if the emotion for something like personally, I found that a lot of these feelings that like never left me, that caused me undue pain for decades, was because I didn't deal with them emotionally. I just like cut me off from feeling the bad feeling, instead of feeling the bad feeling and seeing why I have the feeling and poking at it. The
I see.
discomfort of living in pain, in grief, in self loathing, in trauma, and reliving all those things again and again until you're emotionally you explore them emotionally and you know where they are, is it's a lot. It's too much. Like it's an
Yeah.
adventure to go there. You never know. Like you're gonna get your butt kicked 100 times, and maybe one day you'll win. And when you get your butt kicked a lot, and when you win, do you write it down?
Oh, yeah. And I never thought it up that way. Like usually when people talk about journaling, at least the tips I said, like the one I do is every day I write three three things that went my way in the day, like just to try to remember the good stuff and not focus on the bad stuff. It doesn't have to be like stuff that I'm grateful about. It's just like, oh, someone gave me candy at work today, or oh, there was
Yeah,
bacon on the breakfast today, or just small good good
good
stuff.
stuff. And that works for a lot of people. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for me because I am already consider
Uh,
myself to be super blessed in that way. So I know that I get wins every day. Like I have a, like I don't want to say I have my dream job, but like I have like I have a good life. I know that I have a good
yeah,
life. It's just like
I think we all do, but sometimes it's just I don't know. Yeah, I think
no,
our egos and our
for me, it's
minds
just
just
been
screw with us.
dealing with these bad patterns of behavior I had, or just like
Hmm.
dealing with trauma or with expectations,
Yeah.
or
I mean, it's
I
great
mean,
to know other ways to do this, and I'm always curious to see how people do with their
absolutely.
struggles,
Also,
and that can probably uh, give someone some ideas to something they can try or look into. So,
yes,
thank you for
absolutely.
sharing this.
Something else that I found to be super, super, super helpful, and I'm gonna sound super basic, is get therapy. And I know
Oh,
it's
of
expensive.
course.
No, no, but like
Yeah.
uh, two friends of mine have broken up because one of them had a very bad thing happen to him and doesn't want to get therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. It does happen.
Uh,
Yeah.
so get therapy. It's expensive, yes. However, there are also, depending on where you live, plenty of ways to get therapy for free or for cheap or part paid.
Yeah.
And for example, if you live in a university city, they if they have a psychology department of the clinical type,
That's
not the
true.
experimental type, they often have clinics.
Yeah.
And maybe you are supported, like your worker is a student, but they're usually supervised for ethical reasons. Like they are never unsupervised. They don't let unsupervised
Yeah. 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 Of
do
course. Yeah.
clinical work. Um, Something else that really helped me uh, recently was read a book called Existential Kink, which is not about kink. Well, ostensibly not about kink, but in part it is. Um, but it's in a way about us having wants and needs, not recognizing them, and so living a horrible life because of it.
Mm. Yeah.
Uh, and it's just for a lot of these things, it's been a pattern of like it unlocks a pattern of not like of lack of self acceptance. And for me, was like a bad pattern of like neediness, for example. Like, why do I have this pattern of neediness and emotional um,
Dependence or
you
something.
know
Is that
no,
it?
you know the typical thing when you're with someone and then someone runs away and you chase them,
Hmm.
like emotionally. That stuff. Like for me, was really bad. And I'm not saying that I'm fixed, but
Yeah. It's
that
we are
book,
all work in progress in a way, right?
yes, but that book really helped me find a way. And it's full of methods. Like after the initial explanatory part, it's a collection of things to do, like mental exercises.
Yeah. And do you practice them regularly, or do you have
Uh,
just when you needed stuff? Is there anyone that really stuck with you that you like? I always I don't know if you notice like I talk about some phrases that help me, and those things are like things that I keep repeating to myself because they help me.
I I,
But I mean,
I
something
don't
that helped
really
you. Yeah.
something that like helps me daily. So a lot of these things, fortunately, I've been able to majorly deal with. So a lot of these problems I talked about have been like greatly reduced with effort, to the point where I might have them sometimes, and I notice them, and I register the emotion that I'm feeling, and I don't react, and I let myself feel the emotion, and that's okay. Uh, but I have a history of eating disorders, and still somehow struggle with it. I had periods where it went like in full remission, and periods when like they came back really bad. Um, and like I have a history of like mostly binge eating, uh, and I realize I mostly binge eat when I'm either understimulated and I need some stimulation, and food is great, or when I need to displace some emotion, or um, if food is so great I can't stop eating it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this kind of like recurring slash addictive patterns are or compulsion, they cannot be dealt with in a way that keeps you away from what triggers it, because you have to eat. Like
Yeah.
for example, for drug addiction, the eventually like the idea is maybe not abstinence, but make it work in a way that you don't do it in a way that it's harmful to you. But it's possible to go for abstinence. But going for abstinence of food is itself an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And in highly painful time, I get bouts of anorexia of several weeks.
Wow.
Um, so it's complicated. Like if you have
Hmm.
an addictive relationship with food, you have to bring out the tiger 3 times a day.
Yeah. Wow. That's tough. Well,
Um, so
Paolo.
yeah, so
Uh,
basically,
yeah.
when I like the what I do is when I feel like I get super snacky, or oh my god, I need to eat more. This is delicious. I just sit down and fill my tummy and just like tune out a second and then realize, am I actually hungry?
Yeah.
And if I'm not, get myself a cup of water or a cup of tea, and they go in a different room, because going into a
Yeah.
different room really helps.
Oh, for sure. Because like you are removed from all the food there, and then you
Yeah,
can think about something else and do something different. Paulo, I like we're past 2 hours. I'm gonna do a couple of more questions and more whimsical, more funny.
yeah, go for
And
it.
what I would like to ask you for is like if you could have any superpower from comic books or from fiction, from any sort of media or anything like this, what superpower would you choose to have, and what would be the first thing you would do with it?
So my real traditional answer until very recently would be to be immortal, because you have to have all the time in the world.
Hmm.
Uh, Having gotten to my age, I don't really think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Like I when I said like feeling blessed, I feel I've done a lot of middle life that I'm proud of. Maybe not everything, but that's okay. Like for example,
Oh
like
yeah.
I'm in my 40s, I still don't have kids, and I wanted to have a kid, and that's something that I'm
Hmm.
dealing with. Um, but ideally, what I would really like to have as superpower is the ability to wind back time and tell myself what to do in the past.
Mm. Yeah. What would be the first thing you would go back and tell yourself to do or not to do? If you can share with us, or
Oh,
just something you would do
the
that
most
you can
basic,
share with
the
us.
most basic thing is go
Uh,
back to 1994 and buy a bunch of like alpha and beta, like buy a bunch of beta magic cards.
oh yeah, that's for
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
but also like going back to when I was a kid and don't beg my. Oh my god, this is gonna be like a very like an emotional deep cut, and I'm really sorry for everybody that is
That's
listening.
awesome.
Maybe
That's well.
to 19, 30
If you're
seconds
comfortable
if you don't want to
sharing,
listen.
if
Like
you feel
beg,
comfortable sharing, that's great.
go back to myself as a kid and tell myself, do not beg your dad to not leave your mother.
Wow.
Because in hindsight, I probably would have had a better life. At least some days a week, I would have been in a safe place.
Mm. And yeah, and maybe they would be happier if they were
Yeah,
apart. I
yeah.
don't
And
know.
like, to be
Yeah.
honest, like something that I had to deal with in the past couple of years, like emotionally, has been the guilt that now I experience, like that I recently experienced in asking my dad not to leave.
Mm. Yeah, I
Like
see. I mean,
it's not my fault. I can't
yeah,
tell an
it's not
adult
your
if you're a
choice.
kid. Like
It
it's not
wasn't
my
you.
choice.
It was his choice. Yeah, but
It
it's
was
hard. I
his
mean,
choice.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's hard to
And
not
like
blame
he should
ourselves
he
for
should
this kind of
and he
things.
should
Yeah.
not have listened to me. Like
Oh
anyway,
yeah, you were
like you
you
don't
you
listen
were a
to us.
kid, right? Like, well, you
Yeah, I was
have
like a
no
child.
responsibility in this at all.
No, but that was
Yeah,
like these two things, and like also
yeah.
like but no,
Well, yeah. Thanks
otherwise
for
like
sharing. It's very very personal and very true and very authentic. So thank you for sharing this.
cheers. I'm here for this content.
And Paulo, another one of these is like if you could choose any part of weird fiction, be it can be a faction, a location, a power, a entity, anything from fiction in general, and make it real in our world. What would you choose and why?
I really would like to be able to do proper magic. Like I'm already fortunate to do to be able to do things that require an inordinate amount of study. Like uh, one of the like ADHD makes me bad at my job. I struggle with it every day. Like it's my main drag. The autism is a second, like it's a distant second. But the ADHD is really hard. What I do not find complicated
Yeah,
is reading hundreds of pages of documentation when I need to work on projects. Like if there is a I'm the prototype of that bookie nerd. Like I'm the bookie nerd. I love books so much. I bind books, print books, and have a publishing house.
yeah,
Um, so if there was a way that through study I could actually like um, do traditional wizard stuff,
yeah.
fly,
Change reality for not
disappear,
only for
change
yourself,
reality.
your
Yeah,
experience,
yeah,
but for
like
everybody. Yeah,
change the physical nature of reality that goes behind the physical intervention. Uh, yeah,
yeah.
that would be it. Like open a book, do magic in a way that is more effective than the magic I study from books now.
Yeah. But it kind of seductive that it's kind of a very subtle magic that only those participants can experience in a way too, right? It's very personal, kind of even though that these arcane fireballs and stuff. It's very personal and very. binds
Yeah.
everybody that's there in kind of on a magic circle. Like games have the magic circle in game design, but it's very, this is just for us in a way, and just kind
Yeah,
of
but
cool in this way, right?
it doesn't affect only us because we affect other people. Like personally, making the winter fire, the winter solstice fire, made me a better person. Being able to deal with my emotional baggage incrementally, bit by bit, slowly, once a year for sure, makes me more available to do work for other people.
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
Making us better is better for everybody, unless
Oh
you're a
yeah.
dick. If you're a bad person, do not self improve, unless you improve in a way that makes you less bad. But if it makes
Oh
you
yeah.
a more effective bad person, do not self improve.
It's true. So in a way, you do real magic in a way, but it's very, very subtle. So
It's
yeah,
very subtle. I would like it to be more effective,
yeah, for
not
sure.
having to, like, for example, like I would love to be able to fly to Milan on my own devices rather than having to take a plane. The carbon footprint is much less, and also you get to see a bunch of stuff. And also, yeah, no, but seriously, not the magic, but to go back and warn myself about, tell myself what to do back in the day. That would have been, yeah, those black lotuses.
Yeah. Paulo, finally, our last question that I usually do is, do you remember the last time you felt really happy and grateful for being here, alive, and everything? And if you can share, how was it for everybody? Can you share with us?
I I'm happy. Like I know I get moody and whatever, and have a resting bitch face. Like there has been this
I
joke.
do too.
uh, there is this joke of like this picture taken of like a family picture taken at Christmas where like everybody's smiling and it looks like I'm a hostage. It's like, what's wrong with Paolo in this picture? Nothing. It's just like Paolo's face. Paolo's a resting bitch face. I'm actually like I'm very happy every day.
That's awesome.
I
Yeah.
I don't know, like I think in part is having the incredible luck of having a career that gave me a job that I can do that makes me feel entitled, like not entitled, sorry, that makes me feel accomplished and that gives me a comfortable life. And every single step of being a compute like in computing, in software engineering, is solving problems. And that dopamine hit that you get so many times a day when you fix a problem that is there and it's not there anymore because you solved that problem, for my brain is feels so good.
Wow.
I
That's
swear,
great. Yeah.
I love fixing computers issues. Like, and I don't like fixing computers like, oh, my screen is broken because I've done that for so much time. It's boring.
Hmm.
But the things I do make me feel like accomplished. Like I live. I'm sorry. I have an accomplished life, and I mean I'm sorry if I
That's
sound
great.
super smug, but
No, that's. I think we all wish we had something like this, and I think we all can feel like this sometimes too. I know it's hard, but there is a phrase that I really like called is sometimes disposition can be more important than position, because we can get caught of always wanting something else and something else. And as you said, like I realize uh, I'm very grateful for what I have. I don't need more money. Like I remember in the end of the year, people are like pulling money on the lottery tickets and everything, and then winning a lot of like. Yeah, I'm good here. Like we always spend like too much buying too many lottery tickets, and I'm good, you know.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
also I don't. I, I I admit that it's just I'm super privileged to not have this problem, and I understand that people that buy, for example, lottery tickets or deserve for more money is because they come from a scarcity, from a
oh
life of
yeah,
scarcity, um, and um, but personally, I'm stupidly grateful that I don't have that problem.
yeah,
It's just not a thing. Mm.
yeah. That's great, Paulo. That's it. That had like all the questions I had for you. I'm so great for being here and sharing, all your knowledge or your wisdom and your experiences and being, courageous to share the hard things you lived through and the things you did to get through them. So I'm very happy. And do you have any, last words for the weirdos out there that listen to us talk here for more than 2 hours?
I don't know. Not really,
Yeah,
except
it's
like platitudes like try to live your life to the fullest, be what you want, try to be every day the change you want to see. But try to be every day the change you want to see is great.
it's great, and you can start small. Like we always say, start small. You
Yeah,
want to see a kind of world, like just be kind to that colleague that you sometimes don't talk too much at work, or you know, just
yeah. Oh
start
my God,
small and grow from there.
I
You don't have
just
to
like
change everything at once. Like another
absolutely. I
phrase
just
that I love to is
uh
consistency is more important than intensity. Like you don't have to like big gestures, just small ones and keep doing them.
yeah.
Right?
That thing about kindness just like really hit me. Uh, I just realized that like how much off-putting unkindness has become to me, and so I got to the point where I don't post anymore on social media. One, because I see so many takes that I really don't want to interact with,
Oh no, those
and
things you stay away from.
and
Yeah.
and the other because I might be the bearer of some of those extremely bad takes. And so if I were to post them, I would put myself in bad interactions way. And I'm not sure if I want to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And Paulo, thank you, for sharing this and everything. That's the end of the show. And can you take us out saying, the catchphrase of the show? Keep it weird, everybody.
Keep it weird, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to code-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.